A very warm welcome to a new episode of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. I'm Ritwika Gupta. Tonight we will be delving into the intriguing world of travel and aviation industry. What are the trends, opportunities and current demand for travel and tourism in India? To answer all that and more, my first conversation tonight will be with Mahesh Iyer, CEO and Executive Director, Thomas Cook India. And in the second segment, I'll speak to Sakari Romu, General Manager, India, Finnair. Take a look. Thank you so much, Mahesh, for joining us today on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.
So, the theme for our show this season is Ideas for New India. And I want to begin this interview by asking you, to just share, the 3-4 big ideas or the evolving trends, which you are observing in the travel and tourism industry in India particularly.
Lovely. I'm glad that you put that as the first question to me. One, I think there are not three, there are multiple trends that are emerging, but I would like to focus on 3 or 4 that we believe are one of the best that will stand out for a long time. One, if you look at the market per se, India is becoming a younger market to travel. And why I say that is because the average age of the traveler has fallen from about 40 odd years to about 25. So that's about a generation, a decade has fallen down. And why is that happening? That's purely because you're finding a lot of people who've come into the working group. India is a young economy, it's a young nation. A lot of people are moving from schooling to work, and that is kind of a big portion of the economy. And that's what is attracting a lot of people and investments in this country. Right. So clearly, the disposable income that's there with the people is going up, and the ability and the need to travel is much higher. Sure. The next big trend that I see is that people are now more focused on experiences than on position. Prior to the pandemic, people believed that they need to save for the future, they need to build assets, they had to own assets. Okay. Today, people believe in this concept of now and here, which means they want to enjoy the experience, live that moment and create memories as compared to what they would have done in the past, which is owning those positions. The third thing, earlier we said, roti, kapda or makan. Yeah. Today people say roti, kapda, makan or travel. Nice. Yeah. And that is a very big statement, because now what I'm saying is that makan nahi rahega to bhi chalega. I actually can be in one of the places that I can probably let myself out. I don't want to really pay this EMI for the next 30 years to own something which I don't know whether I'll be there 20 years down the line. I'm rather use that money on creating experiences and memories which will stay with me for times to come. So I believe this is happening. The other important trend that I see is that availability of money. Earlier, prior to the digital era that we are currently seeing, accessibility to funds was not so easy. You had to walk into a bank, you had to walk to an NBFC, do a whole lot of paperwork to get a loan. Correct. Today, you can get a loan over an ATM. You can get a loan over a phone call with not having to do too much of paperwork. Yeah. And the process is very seamless. So we talk about loans in 30 minutes. Right. And people today are not afraid or not shying away from taking loan for a category like travel. Typical Indian mentality is saving, and if I have to use it for a loan, I will take it for creating an asset, but not for creating experiences. So if you see the buy now, pay later category, BNPL, that's exploding, and that's actually emerging for the travel segment also. So clearly, I think young India, ability to spend, roti, kapda, makan or travel, and availability of money are the 4 big themes that I see will play out for this industry.
Right. Mahesh, the pandemic caused a great deal of disruption, for the travel and tourism industry, if I may say. What's the current status like in terms of demand, both in terms of domestic demand and international demand? What can you tell us?
So let me take this in 2 parts. I'll break that first for the domestic, and then I'll talk about the international side of it. If you look at the domestic side of it, I think demand is almost at pre-pandemic levels. Okay. That's because of the fact that there are still challenges in terms of visa. There were restrictions for a very long time in terms of entry. There were protocols that one had to follow. You had to do the RT-PCR, multiple vaccinations and whatever else. So those were the kind of handicaps that people had to travel. Right. Hence, the domestic market kind of started off much earlier in the whole curve. Today, as I see, the domestic is already pre-pandemic. And some of the markets that we used to operate, like you talk about Kashmir, the Andamans, the Uttarakhunds, the Northeast, they're already at about 3x, 4x what it used to be in the pre-pandemic. So the demand is very, very high. The second thing that's playing out for the domestic is that people now believe in taking more breaks and shorter breaks. So gone is the trend of those longer breaks, the 15-day holiday. People are now wanting to run away over a weekend. Like as we speak today, happens to be a bit of a longer weekend if one wants to plan. You'll find somebody actually stepping off to Goa for a 3-night and then coming back. So people are taking shorter breaks, much more than what they used to be doing in the past. And I think those are the kind of trends that are helping the domestic demand. Okay. If I come back to the international side of it, again, there are two parts to it. There is the short haul, which is what we define as the nearby destination, when one that could travel in about 5 to 6 hours. And then there are these long hauls, which is typically the Europe, the US, the Australia. Now, if I look at the short haul, the recovery there is close to about 90%. Sure. That's because there are no visa restrictions. People can travel at a very short notice, and the ability to book is very seamless. So it kind of makes a great sense. If I look at the long haul, the challenges still remain in terms of capacity, because the airline capacity is not back to the pre-pandemic levels. Airfares are still very heightened. You're seeing about 30-35% higher airfares than it used to be in the pre-pandemic level. And top it up, we have the challenges around visa. I mean, if I just give you an example of what we are currently facing, I mean, this is the peak of the holiday season, April, May, June. We're still sitting on close to about 1,000 passengers whose visa has to be done, who have to travel in the next 4 weeks. And finding the slots with the respective countries, trying to get those visas on time are a big challenge.
All right.
Yeah. But I must also add that if I look at the trend for Europe, which happens to be our flagship product and the demand, we already crossed about 10,000 bookings. So clearly the demand is back, people are wanting to travel, and we believe that trend to continue.
Okay. Mahesh, how do you think India's G20 presidency is impacting the travel and tourism industry?
Oh, I think that could be, it's the best thing that has happened.
Yeah.
Okay. One, if I look at the domestic travel, it's actually bringing a different perspective of India. The ability of India to hold an event of this scale. Close to about 180 such events or meetings are going to be held in different parts of the different states in the country. Basically, what's happening is that this entire G20 is forcing the states to focus on tourism. And the Honorable Prime Minister has also laid a lot of emphasis on tourism. Actually, it started off with Gujarat. Gujarat took a lot of lead in terms of promoting it. Now we are seeing a lot more states actually joining the bandwagon and taking tourism as one of the key pillars for driving their growth.
Sure. So, several leading Indian travel operators are set to report, almost 6 to 7% operating profit. I want to understand from you, what do you think is really needed, to really push revenue, back to pre-pandemic levels, especially in the coming fiscal?
Here, I'll be a little guided, or rather I should be say guarded, because I can't talk about what's happened in the March quarter. But if you look at till December quarter, our revenues have actually been coming back very strongly. We have reported close to double-digit growth in the early 20s, I would say. That's the kind of growth we have seen in terms of how they have come back. If I start comparing that to the pre-pandemic level, I would think that a lot of cost transformation has happened. So from a revenue recovery, from a profitability recovery point of view, you will actually see that over the next 3 to 4 quarters, most travel companies will show very steady and stronger growth. That's because a lot of the flap that you had in the organization about in terms of either people, in terms of processes or investment in infrastructure have all disappeared, and they have been replaced with technology. So technology does a lot of work here, which actually has shaved off a lot of cost, allowing a lot of the revenue to flow into the profitability. So my hunch is that over the next 3 to 4 quarters, you will actually see the travel industry posing very good growth. My hunch is it will be about 15 to 17% for the next 4 quarters, if not more.
So earlier in the interview, you mentioned that travel has become a lot more personalized. Tell me, what role does digital play, and how has that, sort of transformed the industry at large?
Oh, I think it's a very good question. I think if the recovery in the travel segment, whether it's travel, hospitality, is all at the backdrop of huge investments in technology. A case in point, if I talk about our group itself, we invested more than $3 million during the pandemic upgrading all our technology. Reason being, we knew that digital India is growing faster, and people, when they come back, whether it's COVID or no COVID, people will want to kind of access you through the digital route. India's digital penetration is very high. The data consumption in India is very high. The mobile penetration is high, which only means that people are very savvy transacting, doing digital transaction. UPI changed the world. Yeah. So it was just right for us to ensure that we created that digital journey for the customer. So I think the digital journey across the industry is very strong. And it also, I think, paves the way for the next wave of digitization that's going to come. Because you're going to find a set of customers who want to do it DIY, which is do it yourself. Yeah. And India still is this market which is DIFM, do it for me. Yeah, and in that DIFM market, you got to give that assistance. So travel as a category is always going to be an assisted model where you could do a lot of things by yourself, but that last bit still needs some amount of physical touch, and that DIFM model in India will always work.
Wonderful. It was lovely chatting with you, Mahesh. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's time for a quick break here. When we return, we'll be in conversation with Finnair. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. Now, Finnair has completed 100 years of operations globally, and tonight in this segment, I'll be speaking to Sakari Romu, General Manager India, Finnair, to understand the opportunities and challenges in India's aviation industry. Listen in. Thank you so much for joining us today on Leaders of Tomorrow, Sakari.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So the theme for our show this season is Ideas for New India. Please share with us some of your big ideas, or consumer trends that you think will shape the travel industry in the coming years.
Yes, that's a very good question. I would like to encourage people to experience something, not that well known in India. There is a huge travel to Europe, but especially that goes to cities like London, Paris, and so on. But there is also a different kind of Europe. And I mean, Scandinavia, Finland, Baltics, and so on. And I would encourage people to experience really the clean air, clean water, clear sky, and all the possibilities, Finland is offering for Indian travelers.
The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on the aviation industry. How did that impact your business, and what is the current status in terms of demand?
Yes, of course, we know that, COVID hit not just airlines, but the travel industry in general very badly. And to be honest, we are also facing, unfortunately, another issue, which is the war in Europe between Russia and Ukraine, and which has led to the Russian airspace closure. But, thinking the life after COVID, there has been a very strong pent-up demand, and even flying a little bit longer time, for instance, to India, we have seen that people are willing to travel. After 2-3 years, they are willing to see their friends, business partners, and enjoy the life by traveling.
Now, if you can talk to us about Finnair's business and expansion plans in India, I understand there are new routes and also a new cabin. What's the rationale behind this?
Yes, as we know, India is the biggest growing market in world today and giving a lot of possibilities for the airlines. We opened a new route to Mumbai just last August and serving Delhi on daily basis. And as you mentioned, we are just to finish our 200 million investment to build our aircraft in new way, meaning the new business class, premium economy, and also changes in economy class. And we have, in a way, rethink the whole concept of a business class. It is very unique, and for instance, the seat is not offered by any other airline. It is based on the lounge type of fare, giving more opportunities to customers to find their own position. And we just got it on our route to Delhi from 27th of March. And I'm very happy that we can have that kind of service for our Indian customers.
So Finnair completes 100 years of operations this year. What factors do you believe have enabled the airline to thrive in this fiercely competitive aviation industry?
Yes, 100 years in aviation industry is very, very unique. We have to remember that the first flight, man-made, was just done about 2 decades, or exactly 2 decades before Finnair started operation as an airline. And we found it as a great achievement. And of course ours is to serve our customers also coming 100 years.
So India is expected to become the world's 3rd biggest aviation market by the middle of this decade. Tell us how important is the Indian market for Finnair's overall strategy?
We know that India will become the 3rd biggest aviation market in very near future. And as said, it offers a lot of opportunities. There is a big demand and the growing number of customers in India. And I think it will give us and all airlines a lot of new opportunities. And we are, of course, evaluating the market situation and so on daily basis and looking for new opportunities in India. But at the moment, we are strongly focusing on our existing network, meaning New Delhi and Mumbai.
Tell us, how are you dealing with some of the challenges that the aviation industry is currently facing, such as high fuel prices, and given Finnair has a longer flying time, how has that impacted your airfares?
Well, there has been quite a big rise in airfares after the COVID, and there are numerous reasons for that. One is, of course, that the costs are on much higher level, especially the fuel cost has been rising. And then when it comes to the routes like from Helsinki to India, also the flying times are around 20% higher, 20% longer. And well, if we compare the total market before the COVID and today, the capacity is not there on the same level as it used to be. So we are probably globally looking on a level of about 80%. So I think that the outcome is that with less capacity, with higher cost, and with the good demand, that's all creating, higher yields for the airlines and higher prices for the customers.
And do you think there could be a potential re-emergence of low-cost long-haul travel?
Yeah, I think that, of course, looking at a market like India, there will be a huge growth in short flying, meaning the domestic traffic. but seeing the market and seeing the actions by all the airlines, I would say that also the long-haul traffic will go rapidly in coming years, very rapidly, I would say.
How has Finnair taken steps to become an environmentally conscious airline?
That is a very, very good question, and I think that sustainability is one of the pressure points for all the airlines, and there is no one silver bullet how to make it. Many actions has to be taken, and Finnair has set very ambitious targets, and we are set our target to halve our emissions compared to the 2019 level by 35, and to be CO2 neutral by 45. And that's not just related to the flying, but also all non-flying, non-air operations has to be taken care. And really, I think that all the airlines should do the most to tackle the issue.
Thank you so much, Sakari, for joining us. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. We hope you enjoyed the conversations. Thank you and goodbye.